Hello, this is your boy Faltouch here, and welcome back to an episode of the Blue Monday Manchester City podcast. Thank you so much for stopping by once again. Hopefully, we'll get as many views as we did last week. Last week was just genuinely insane for this podcast. We've got so many views. Lots of people clicked onto that video. Thank you so much to every person who watched that video. The support was absolutely immense on that one. So hopefully today we can get similar numbers, and this podcast can just keep on growing. So, to get things kicking off today, I suppose we should talk about the last week of Manchester City Football Club. And the first thing to talk about, of course, would probably be the West Brom game last Wednesday. A fairly elementary football fixture for City. Goals courtesy of Gabriel Jesus, also Kevin De Bruyne getting on the goals. And on top of that, a cheeky goal from Yaya Toure, potentially his last ever goal for us this season. We'll never know. He has yet to sign a new contract at City, but perhaps with performances which he's been putting in recently, he may be able to get himself a new contract for next season and possibly deserves one as well. I mean, he has put in a really good shift recently and he completely deserves getting into the City team at the moment. I mean, we don't really have all that many options, and what I've always said with Yaya Toure, he's a player which divides opinions personally. He has done so much for Manchester City Football Club. He's single-handedly perhaps won us a lot of games down the years. And he is such an awkward player, but perhaps his work rate is the thing which has surprised me at times this season. He doesn't really move that much, but he does do very well at keeping the ball, and his passing is also immense at times. So I do have a lot of respect for Yaya Toure, and I think he will perhaps get another contract next year if he wants to himself. But in the game itself, West Brom weren't particularly too hard an opponent. They're pretty much on the beach at this stage of the season. I think that's fair to say. For the last couple of weeks, they have been in pretty dire form. I'm surprised they perhaps even scored against us. It was one of those games where we just completely dominated them. They couldn't get out of their own half. And these last couple of games are perhaps what Pep Guardiola expected when he first came to the Premier League. Teams trying to put all their men behind the ball, but just with absolutely zero success, and the quality of our players just being able to outdo them. Kevin De Bruyne, I thought, had a very, very good game in this fixture. Of course, David Silva was always very, very good. But we only really dipped when it came towards the end of the fixture, when the man, the myth, the legend, Pablo Zabaleta came on. Possibly his worst ever game for City, but he will always go down as an absolute legend in so many circles for Manchester City fans. 333 appearances for the club, and every single one of them he gave his all in every single fixture, and that's exactly what we loved about him. I talked about how great a player he was last week, and he completely deserved, and I have to say, all the celebrations of Zabaleta were so much more tactful than the Chelsea one for John Terry on Sunday. It was just absolutely awful. He took 2 minutes to walk off the pitch during a game. What sort of player wants to play 26 minutes and go off after your number comes up? Surely you want to play the full game. John Terry is a very, very strange individual. I'm glad that Manchester City never bought him about 6-7 years ago, whatever time it was. And it's just kind of odd, but when Zabaleta, he did all his thing, it was just fantastic to see. There was tears in the crowd, and Pablo Zabaleta has been an integral part. But unfortunately, as I said last week, it's time for him to move on, and wish him all the best on his pastures new. It looks like he's going to West Ham United, and I'm sure he'll do a fantastic job for Slaven Bilic's side, because they desperately need a right back. But it was a good result for City, and it really did help us going into the final game of the season against Watford. It took some of the pressure off, knowing that Arsenal would have had to bring in a massive, massive result, and also hoping that Liverpool won as well, which both teams did in the end. It seemed like Everton were pretty intent on hoping that Liverpool were able to lose or draw their fixture in order to help their rivals out, I suppose, in a way, help their opposition out, I should say, Arsenal. And some of the defending in that Arsenal game from both sides was pretty atrocious, I've got to say, but it is always hilarious. I really do not like Arsenal. I don't know what it is. There's something about their clubs and the self-entitlement of their fans which I really, really dislike. But at the end of the day, they're missing two of their best defenders when it comes to Chelsea. And even though I'm not a Chelsea fan, my dad's a Chelsea fan. He's been a Chelsea fan since he was born. And I still absolutely despise both of them. But at the end of the day, as far as I'm concerned, I'd be much happier seeing Chelsea lift a double than seeing Arsenal win, considering they knocked us out, and especially in the manner in which they did. And then it came to the last game of the season against Watford, and we saw once again the link-up play between Gabriel Jesus and Sergio Aguero. I thought Aguero in the last 2 games of the season has been exceptional. People are questioning his work rate and his goal-scoring ability at times this season, but once again, he came back and proved the doubters wrong in the last couple of games. He set up a goal for Yaya Toure against West Brom, and his finishing ability, although wasn't the best against us Watford at the weekend, he certainly made a massive impact on the fixture. And I tell you what, City put in an absolute shift against Watford, against a side which are pretty atrocious, I have to say. But still, people will probably say, well, look at them. They have been on the beach for the last couple of weeks. Walter Mazzari's going. There's a massive murmurs of discontent within their football club. But at the end of the day, Chelsea struggled against them the other day, and we made them look absolutely shocking. Our level and standard of football in the last 3 games of this season has been absolutely superb as far as I'm concerned. The first half against Leicester, the game against West Brom, and then finally culminating with the game against Watford. 4-0 up at half-time. You don't expect to be in that position, but when you've got the quality of players on the pitch, no matter who we're playing against, we should be able to completely batter sides. And hopefully, if we can keep this side fit, especially players like Vincent Kompany, hopefully next season we can have a really good shot at the title, especially with all the big 6 teams, as far as I'm concerned, all being in Europe. Every single club has a limiting, doubting factor over them because they're all going to have to play pretty much the same amount of games. So it's going to affect every single team next year. So it's going to make it a bit more of an equal playing field, whereas Chelsea have had to play a lot less games. But at the end of the day, it's been a fantastic season end for Manchester City. Lots of players putting a good shift in the game against Watford. All the goals were incredibly well created, especially the 3rd goal, courtesy of Sergio Aguero. It was just a magnificent goal. I think there was about 20 plus passes, and it culminates with a pass from Willy Caballero out of his box. Really nice composed. This is exactly what Guardiola wants of his goalkeepers, and he completely delivered. Nice pass out, goes to David Silva, and that ball, oh my lord, that ball into Sané is just absolutely sensational. Now, I saw at the weekend on Sky Sports Soccer Saturday thing, but it was on a Sunday, of course. It was Charlie Nicholas, a man who seems to know absolutely nothing of football, and all he ever says is, I'm just sat there thinking, that's all he pretty much says. And he came out and said that although David Silva is a better player, Heung-min Son deserves to be in the team of the year. Now, how does that make any sense? It just doesn't make any sense. You should surely be rewarded for being a better player in the team of the season, and how David Silva's managed to not be in it, it sincerely is a joke, really. It doesn't make any sense to me. Perhaps he's the best creative midfielder. He sets the tempo for our side. And even that little pass into Sané was just absolutely sensational. And I have to say as well, lovely pass from Sané across the box. His pace is just absolutely blistering. We have a massive future ahead of us in the next couple of years. If eventually we can sort these little problems out, get some new fullbacks in, buy a new goalkeeper, perhaps have a plan B striker, a taller man, that's man sort of like similar to Edin Dzeko, but of course we're not going to sign Dzeko back, let's be honest with ourselves. And just sincerely just sort those problems out, and I'm sure next year we'll have a really, really good shot at the league, hopefully. I mean, I'm seeing so many positive signs. I'm not going to go through every single goal, breaking it down. Lovely to see Vincent score, of course. His big head getting in on goals. But overall, it's been a fantastic end to the season. It's set down a marker for next year and of what we're going to have to do next season. Who's going to be there next year? We'll have to discuss that in next week's podcast. Hopefully, I'll be able to get a guest on or someone like that and perhaps talk about who we think should perhaps be City's team next year, who we should keep, who should go. And of course, if we're going to be losing players from out of contract. So it looks like Bakary Sagna's going, who came on a free transfer, and to be honest with you, he's done a job for us for a couple of seasons, unfortunately. I still think he's a good player, and he'll do a great job for any other team in the Premier League. He also goes down as a homegrown player under the Premier League quota system, so he'll do a job for certain teams in the Premier League, and I think he's a decent player, Bakary Sagna. I'm sure his wages are probably horrifically high. On top of that, it looks like Jesus Navas will be leaving City. Not a massive miss, I have to say. Just because he hasn't scored in 3 years, he was apparently offered a new contract to play at right back. Unfortunately, though, it seems he wants to go back to Sevilla. He has had problems with homesickness in the past, so it is fairly understandable in a way that he perhaps does want to leave. However, I mean, he has always put in a good shift at City. Unfortunately, though, his end ball has just never been good enough for the last 3 seasons. And at the end of the day, we need top quality players. And it seems like Patrick Roberts has been putting a good shift in at Celtic, so hopefully he'll be able to replace him. Of course, on top of that, there's also clouds over Yaya Toure. Willy Caballero, I don't know if he's involved with a contract situation as well. So there's a number of players at City at the moment who could perhaps be leaving. I think Nolito could perhaps be going as well. There's been talk about him going to Real Betis and City losing about £9 million on him automatically. I mean, we signed him for about 13. It looks like he's going to go for about 4. Some absolutely ridiculous transfer policy from Cheeky Bizgiristain. But nonetheless, it's been a good season for City. And looking at this striking option, saw the statistics which they come out. Even though Kevin De Bruyne had a massive dip in form midway through the season, he's still come out this year with 6 goals and 18 assists, the highest in the Premier League. And at the weekend, he was absolutely superb once again. Good against West Brom, picked up a goal in that fixture. Good against Watford as well. Gabriel Jesus as well. This boy is a massive, massive talent. We've seen him playing for City, and he's not just good at creating goals, he also is a fantastic finisher. Perhaps should have done better, should have been a bit more selfish at the weekend against Watford. He tried to square it across the box, when in reality, perhaps should have done a little bit better and just shoot straight away. But he has scored 7 goals in 8 appearances from starts. Also, he's picked up 2 substitute appearances. 4 assists in that time. I mean, that's a fantastic start. A guy who's never played in the Premier League. I've never seen a player adjust to the league as quickly as him. You see people like, for example, I'm trying to think of an example. Edin Dzeko. First 6 months at City, awful. Couldn't adapt to the Premier League. Another player, Eric Lamela, still hasn't adapted to the Premier League, cost £35 million. Heung-min Son, first season, the whole of last year, couldn't adapt. Leroy Sané took him about 3-4 months to really get going in the Premier League. So it just shows how difficult league the Premier League is, yet Gabriel Jesus has just fitted in like a glove. It's been absolutely fantastic watching him play, and hopefully it looks like we're going to be able to keep Sergio Aguero as well. Pep Guardiola's already said he wants to keep him. On top of that, Sergio Aguero yesterday has said he wants to stay as well. Happy days. And the man himself has scored the most goals he's ever picked up in a City shirt this season. He scored 20 Premier League games from 31 games, 25 starts, 6 off the bench, also picking up 3 assists as well. But in total, throughout the whole of the season, he's picked himself up 30 goals in 45 games, including 1 international friendly. It seems like he's going to be left out the Argentina team this year as well, which for me is absolutely ridiculous. I heard that lots of Argentinians for some reason don't really get on with him, but then again, there is also a couple of players in Argentina. When you've got so many good attacking players, how do you fit them all in? And that's probably a problem for them. Also, perhaps because of his work rate, they may think that other players are better in certain positions, but the fact that he's not involved, in my opinion, he's probably the best out-and-out striker. Harry Kane, for me, is the best finisher in the league, and he completely deserves to see it. And you know what? As an Englishman, I'm fantastically proud that we have once again got an English player at the top of the goal-scoring charts. He is a top striker, Harry Kane. It's so good watching him. You know, when you go for on goal with him, let's not forget he missed the first month of the season, and he came out with 29 goals at the end of it. It's just absolutely insane. So what can I say about City though? I mean, I feel like we're in a good position. There's been so much progression since the start of this season, I believe. Although we started off pretty well, it was certain games where I feel that perhaps we can certainly improve on still. Games such as like Tottenham away, Arsenal away, we've let our lead drop a few too many times, and I still think to this day, if we'd been able to beat Chelsea, that De Bruyne chance, it could have perhaps turned the league completely the other way around. I have to say though, Chelsea deserve the position which they're in. They've had a superb season, and their consistency has been unparalleled in the Premier League. But at the end of the day, I think the future is bright for City. We've got a couple of players coming through. Sané seems to be getting better and better every week. And if we are able to just make a couple of extra signings, I'm sure we'll be in a great position. What I want you guys to do in the comments section down below is put who you want City to sign the most. It can be anybody in the world. Let's try and get some realistic ones though. We've got to be honest with ourselves. I don't want to see Ronaldo or Messi. I don't really see those 2 players ever coming to City. But let me know who you guys want to see joining Manchester City next year. Get involved in the comment section down below. Thank you once again for watching and also listening into this week's podcast. Thank you for joining me. Arrivederci.